Hey everyone, welcome to Everyday Fi. I'm your host, Megan Combs, and I'm here to say that you do not need a $1 million book deal or a famous blog to reach financial independence. By exploring the lives of everyday people pursuing Fi, I'll show you how to forge your own path to financial freedom the everyday way. Sam and I kick off part 2 of his story, talking about the moments that led him to the financial independence community. Sam shares how the realization of student loan debt initially propelled him towards FI, but the intense focus on hitting a high savings rate and that debt payoff created tensions in his marriage and his personal life as he struggled to find balance. The second half of Sam's story promises a truly insightful look into balancing life's demands while pursuing financial goals, and it explores actionable advice for better financial planning and personal fulfillment. Tune in to hear the rest of Sam's journey. Also, thanks again for your patience with the audio. As I mentioned last episode, I accidentally recorded using my AirPods instead of my fancy schmancy mic. It's not like I've been hosting the show for almost 2 years or anything. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so I want to know about your FI journey and how you found the financial independence movements. What drew you to the FI community versus some other type of financial education?
Yeah, I think I've spoken about this before, and it's just dawning on me that I think I actually got it wrong. The very first financial influence that I had from outside of my family was actually Dave Ramsey. The day that I graduated from college, the night before, I don't even know if somebody gave it to me as a graduation gift or how I got a hold of it, but I got a hold of Your Total Money Makeover book. And I started reading it at 8 or 9 p.m. the day before the graduation ceremony. And I stayed up until 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or something. And I just read the entire book. At that point, I don't think I had read anything financially related at all. And so I don't know why it clicked with me because I still at that point was not considering what kind of job I'm going to get for the money and retirement accounts and making sure I save and stuff. So I don't know why, but something about it felt so fascinating to read about other people's money stories and see what they did with their money. It was just so good. I didn't really implement any of that in my life at all for at least 2 or 3 years. And it wasn't up until the point where my ex was graduating and I found out the debt that we were going to have, the 225,000, and it just scared me. Like, how are we going to pay this back? And I Googled something like how to pay back med school loans fast or something. And I came upon the White Coat Investor, which I don't know if you've heard of the White Coat Investor, but it's an extremely good resource for really anybody, but he kind of caters specifically to physicians and high income households. And it was just like, oh my gosh, there's this completely different world that people are living in and the way they think about money. And it's so exciting. And this is definitely the way forward and what I've got to key in on. And through him, I found Physician on Fire, which is another doc that has a blog, and somehow linked to Mr. Money Mustache. I think the White Coat Investor, his name's Dr. Dolly. I think he may have linked to him in one of his posts that he wrote. And that led me to Mr. Money Mustache, and of course, the shockingly simple math behind early retirement and all of his other extremely good posts. And so it just kind of bled into regular financial independence, retire early content. So initially it was just as a way to pay off these student loans, but then it morphed into like, wait a minute, okay, well, once we get done with that, then what do we do? And oh, here's all these accounts, and oh, you can only work for 10 or 15 years if you want, and it's all about your savings rate. Nothing else matters, and stop buying stupid stuff that you don't actually need. And I started implementing some of these things, and I'm still married at this point. And that did start driving a little rift in between my ex wife and I because she was a spender. And so I was rapidly becoming a saver and wanting to save. The only problem was I wasn't the one making the money in the relationship. She was. And it's like, hey, let's take some of this and let's put it into your TSP account. And hey, let's open up some Roth IRAs. And there was that divide as well. After Mr. Money Mustache, I think that's probably when I first started listening to podcasts. And I don't think that I found ChooseFI through any other way other than the same way that I found your podcast, which was just like opening up the podcast app, typing in financial independence and seeing what came up. And I got introduced to ChooseFI, Two Sides of Fi, and the Money Guy Show, which is probably one of my favorite ones these days. Then Erin Talks Money is another one that I listen to quite frequently now, although it's not a podcast. I think it's just a YouTube channel. But just the white coat investor, physician on fire, Mr. Running Mustache, that's what I had when I was married. And then once I got divorced and it was like all on me and I'm starting from the very beginning, that's when it drew me to content for beginners, which ChooseFI is sort of content surrounding normal income and lower income individuals, which I very much was when I initially started flying. I was making way, way less than I would say the average or median income at that point in time. So like that gave me like a good foundation of what to do when you don't have a lot coming in, and really helped me focus on the spending less aspect of it and not so much the making more. I assumed the making more would happen eventually, but they talk about the locus of control, and I could control what my spending was at that point in time. So I was living incredibly frugally for that first year that I was a pilot. I rented an efficiency apartment, so it was one room plus a bathroom, and that was for $500 a month. And then I was working 6 days a week, and so other than groceries, I was spending nothing. So I think my living cost for that year, which I keep in a spreadsheet because of course I do, was like 14,000 I think for that year. I made something like 28,000 I think. So I roughly saved half my income that year. Yeah.
So it's interesting because you were a part of a couple who was making quite a bit of money, and yet this still spoke to you to be able to save and invest and do all of that. And I know you mentioned at the beginning of the episode that part of the reason that you wanted to take control of your financial life was because you felt out of control during certain parts of the marriage and towards the end of the marriage. Tell me if I'm getting this wrong. It sounds like when you found Fi, you weren't maybe yet in that headspace. And so I'm curious, A, if I get that right. If I did, what drew you to the concept of financial independence? And was the retire early part of what drew you in?
So I was definitely in that headspace, and easily one of the things that drew me into it most was I recognized that okay, this is a way that I can take back control. Not necessarily like
Yeah,
of our marriage, but of at least like my own financial
your own finance.
situation.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So the retire early thing didn't really kick in until quite a bit later. I was certainly divorced at that time where retiring early sort of maybe it became a goal. I'm really wishy-washy on the RE part. I don't know if that's what I want to do or not. And it's really not important, honestly. Like becoming FI is what would give you the option to RE or not. And so that's something I can tackle a little bit later on when I get to that point.
Yeah, that's cool. So what do you want to do with your life after you reach financial independence?
Help. I need an adult. I don't know.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
That is really tough. Well, like I said, flying is something that I love to do. Just the physical act of going into the plane, taking off, flying through some really cool avoidance of weather, flying at night, seeing the night sky, doing a particularly difficult approach or to land or whatever. It's really fulfilling. It's really, really fun. It just doesn't feel like work at all. I'm just doing it way too much right now. So if I could somehow scheme and get enough seniority at my airline to only fly like a couple of trips a month, like if I only worked like 8 to 10 days a month, I think that would be pretty ideal. That's probably what I would work towards initially once I'm FI and just kind of see how things go. So I told you I live in Maryland right now, but I'm based elsewhere in the United States. So I have to commute to work, which is a super bummer. So it takes me roughly 5 hours or so to get to work to start the day. And then, of course, like 5 hours back home whenever the trip ends. And some of our trips can be like day trips, and then some of them can be up to 5 days long. So it's very variable. If I can reduce the amount that I work, even with the commute, maybe that would be okay. I would look at maybe trying to either switch airlines to go to a different base or something. A big part is going to be to figure out where I want to live in the US so that I can make roots because I don't have any roots. I was so honed in on being able to live close to my daughter to be a part of her life that I don't really have a life of my own, so to speak, yet. So that's going to be a big part, or at least something I'm going to have to grapple with once I get to the point where working for money is not a necessity. Other than that, there's lots of different stuff that I would like to do. I used to be quite a bit more active than I am now. Some of the things are really, really basic. Like this morning, for instance, the very first thing I did when I woke up is go run. And that's like one of my very favorite ways to start the day. I want to get up and I want to go put some miles in. leisurely grab a cup of coffee, take a shower, eat some breakfast. That whole process can take like 2 or 3 hours for me to be as leisurely as I want it to be. If you've got like a 4 a.m. showtime at the airport, you're not getting up at 1 a.m. to go on a leisurely jog. You're just not. So that's something that seems so luxurious to me that I just can't do as often as I would like to. And that would be like an everyday thing, I think, for me when I'm FI. I haven't had the opportunity to really learn how to cook as well as I would like to for myself. And the more that I work, the more that I'm spending nights in hotels away from home. And so I'm just grabbing like whatever kind of crap, usually whatever's closest and cheapest is usually what I go for. And just like my mom watches HGTV, occasionally I'll watch cooking shows and I'm like, oh, wow, it would be really nice to make such and such dish. And oh, Bobby Flay, ooh la la, let's get into some of that. So I would like to take a cooking class and buy some really nice cookware and utensils and whatever so I can make the process of cooking really enjoyable for me. I'd like to get back into some sports stuff that I used to do. I used to rock climb a lot, and that was a lot of fun. I'd love to get back into that while I physically still can. I did martial arts fairly frequently as a kid and as an adult, and that just completely went to the wayside. I don't know if I'll ever do that again or not, but I'd like to maybe at least give it a try. Not to mention just like having the time and space to, oh, hey, my friend lives in Germany. So I want to just like go hop on a flight and go over there and spend a week or two hanging out with him and his wife and kids and his family and tasting some cool German beer and just kind of whatever. So just having the freedom of movement and time that I just don't feel like I have as much of right now.
Have you ever considered dialing back the work and living some of this lifestyle now? I know as five people, we are gung ho to meet that goal, meet the goal of five, meet the goal of five, where we kind of give up the now, and the now is really all that's guaranteed. So I wondered if that's ever gone through your head before to try and do some of this now.
It has. I can give you some of the reasons why I've not done that yet. And please feel free to give me any and all pushback to my things.
Phone calls and all of them. No, go ahead.
Absolutely. Okay. So, like I said, I'm already feeling very fortunate that I'm in the position where I got to a place where I can make a lot of money very, very quickly. Like right now, if you were in the same spot that I was in 2020, right now, no chance that's happening for you right now. Like airlines are just not hiring in not even close to the numbers that they were when I got into it. So I'd like to make the most out of that opportunity because I don't know if that's going to stick around. If you look at an airline like Spirit, and I don't know if you know anything about what's going on with Spirit, but I believe they're like actively filing for their second Chapter 11 bankruptcy right now, which just sucks for the whole airline. And as the pilots, like that, you're going to get furloughed, and some, I don't know, 4, 5, 600 pilots have already been furloughed, and there may be more coming, and they may not have a job in a year. And as pilots, especially now, we don't have the opportunity to just go out and get another job doing the same thing that you were doing at another company. It just does not work like that. The skills atrophy very quickly as well. So if you were to say lose your job or something for 6 months and didn't fly, like you are so much less competitive to another airline because now you don't have recency. And from a legal standpoint, you actually can't go fly passengers. You have to comply with certain restrictions within a certain time frame on a rolling basis. So you might lose that. So just where we're at economically, I mean, who knows? Things may only ever get better from here or they may get worse. I don't know. But while I can make the hay while the sun is still out in the sky, I'd like to do that. So that's maybe probably my main reason for having not slowed down yet, because I'm at the point where it's not going to take me too much longer to get to the point where I'm legitimately just fine if I wanted to and not have to cut back any of my current living expenses. So in my head, I'm like, okay, if you push for 2 more years, I should be able to be there at my current rate. And then I'll have the option to not work at all or cut way back. I think the trade off seems worth it right now. I don't know if that's right or not. That's kind of where I'm at. Another thing is an idea that I'm tossing around is switching airlines to have the opportunity to be based at a location where I think I might want to be long term. The issue with that is when you go to another airline, you don't port your seniority over. It all starts back to zero. So you'll be the least senior pilot. You'll make year one pay as an FO. So even if you were a top of the line captain pay at Delta and you went over to United, you're a year one FO and your pay is going to get cut 75%.
Yeah, I've heard that about the flight attendants is the same thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So it sounds like it's just across
It
the
is.
board. That's annoying.
It's extremely annoying and does not fit with the concept that is spread in a lot of podcasts where it's like, okay, if you don't like your job, okay, we'll just leave and go search for another job and you'll probably get a pay raise. Like, nope, if you leave your job as a pilot, you are going to the bottom of the barrel and it does not matter. You have no negotiating opportunities. Like, we're all unionized. This is the way it is. And you can't get around that. It's just not an option. If it was, I would have explored it for sure. That's something I'm playing with because maybe I'm at the point now where I can take the hit on the income because I'm so far along in my journey. And yeah, it'll extend my time to FI by 2, 3, 4 years, but that could be worth it. So if that happens to pan out, that'll be a very serious consideration. But at the moment, I'm still heads down. Okay, let's charge through the next like 2 years, get to FI, and then hopefully at that point, all the possibilities will open up. But now feel free to poke holes in that terrible logic.
I don't think it is because you answered the questions that I was going to ask, which was what about moving to another airline that maybe has a little bit more stability? I was thinking Delta or United or something like that. And I know we're not saying who your airline is and we should not because they don't need to know you're talking about this. But I guess my question, and this is going to be a difficult one, and if you don't want to answer it, just let me know, is if you found out tomorrow that you have a month to live, is this how you would want to live that month? And I know that's a hard question because it's like, well, I'm going to die in a month. I'm definitely not going to live this way. But it's more a thought experiment that it's like your life doesn't have to be exactly perfect, right? But how much of it are you sacrificing for the future? So much so that you are giving up so much of your present. Is there a balance you can strike? And it sounds like you are in the headspace of thinking through that because you're like, if it works out with another airline, maybe I will take that pay cut. But yeah, I wanted to see if you were going to die in a month, is this how you'd want to live?
It certainly is not. I am not doing anything that's sustainable remotely. I feel pretty stretched and I'm having to make sure that I'm taking care of myself in such a way that at least remains doable for the time period that I need it to work. I feel like it is sustainable for the amount of time. Like I said, I'm targeting like roughly 2 years or so. But if I had a month to live, absolutely not. Yeah, I'd quit my job. Like, there's no notice. I'm not showing up to another flight. I'm going to go hang out with my family and do fun stuff. And I'm going to use all the money that I've got right now to go have some experiences that I have definitely not had and said no to while I've got that time. But I look at it, the whole YOLO thing, and what if you only had a month left? I look at it statistically, I'm likely to live until I'm probably 90 or so. I have quite a good longevity in both sides of my family. So I'm not expecting to die soon, other than like a freak accident. And if that happens, I feel very comfortable with I have made the most of the opportunities that I've given myself within the confines of trying to aggressively pursue FI, and that all of my money would eventually transfer to my daughter, and she's going to be able to use that and have a way better, easier life than she would have otherwise. So I feel pretty comfortable in that regard, but I will say that I definitely have given up both experiences and relationships that I might not have had to give up had I not been so doggedly pursuing FI.
Yeah, and I get it. I would quit my job tomorrow if I found out I was dying in a month too. And that's why I asked because I'm kind of grappling with some of these decisions myself because I am waiting for certain things to happen before I can quit my job. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I forget if it was Tim Cook or one of those people, Apple, I don't know, who said, if you look in the mirror every day and you ask yourself, is this the kind of life I want to be living? How many of the days are you saying no? And what needs to change to get most of your days saying yes, right? And I'm paraphrasing there. I think he said it a little bit differently than that. And it's one of those things that I think we all have to ask ourselves because we can get so caught up in the end goal and what's needed to get there that we're a little blindsided. And I'm not saying this about you, I'm kind of saying this about myself. I should not be saying this right now. If I could quit tomorrow, I would. And it's not that I hate my job, but it's so unsustainable. And I don't work the kind of hours you do. It's not about that. It's the amount of stress in the amount of hours I work that's unsustainable. Like I'm literally like this, and I can feel my entire body is clenching to where my neck is in such pain by hour two of a workday. And like I told you before we started recording, all I had today was like a latte and some nuts for food. I had to shovel down some food before this recording. And it's a Friday. Aren't Fridays supposed to be more relaxed? No, not my job. So anyway, I asked that question because I'm kind of asking myself that question. And I feel like we're in similar situations where we're trying to get to a goal and just push through and just we can do it. But at least you like being a pilot. So it's good. That's good.
If you don't care, I'd like to ask for your feedback on something. And this is something I've been thinking about probably for the last year or two, and I've just started putting it into a realistic, what does a realistic playbook look like? I've got a spending spreadsheet and I've got a billion tabs in my investing spreadsheet. I literally put every single penny that I spend and have for the last 6 years. And it's fun. I just enjoy doing that and having all the data and whatnot. I have never spent more than I have this year, and I'm on track to probably spend about 36,000 this year. And so my thought is that a million, and just loosely using the 4% rule, whatever, $40,000 a year already gives me more money than I've ever spent my entire life. And so in my brain, I'm thinking, okay, like the lifestyle that I live is, I think, certainly sustainable in terms of how much money I spend. I don't feel like I need to go out and spend a ton more money to be that much happier. I'd be okay with having the option of doing so, but I don't think it's a necessity. And I think there would be a really nice soothing brain moment just knowing that, okay, I'm doing this job, but I don't have to be here. I'm here because I want to be here. And I think that would just make the times where I have trips that I'm flying with a captain who I don't agree with or I'm not having a good time, just make it so much easier. Just knowing, sitting there like, I don't really have to do this. So my plan is to get to roughly a million in liquid net worth and investable assets. Then afterwards, I am not and never have been a homeowner, but I think that would be a part of something that I would want in my perfect life. So if I can find a place to put down roots and feel pretty good about being there for 10, 15 plus years, I would want to buy a house. But I wouldn't want to take 400,000 out of my taxable brokerage account or something and just like buy a house with cash. I would want to just get a mortgage on it. So the way I would want to tackle it is, okay, save up enough for 20% just to not necessarily prove to myself that I can, because I obviously can save money, but to avoid PMI and to maybe take a little bit of the risk of like having negative equity in the house off the table. So save up 20% on a down payment, buy a house, and then at that point, even if I'm commuting, go ahead and implement this reduction in work as much as I can. So drop trips whenever I can, work less than full time, which is possible, and just kind of go with that. And then not really focus on the investing part, although I probably still contribute to a Roth IRA, HSA. I don't know if I would contribute to my 401k while I'm doing that. But all the other dollars that I'm not spending either on retirement accounts or lifestyle just go to the house and potentially pay off the house within 5 or 6 years or so to set myself up to like, okay, have a fully paid off house. The $1 million in retirement probably has grown to some extent to even more than I would have needed anyways, even with renting. And then I'm setting myself up to, I'm ready to just punch out at any point in time with a very low cost of living, relatively minimal expenses. And that just seems like the perfect place to be. So that's kind of my goal. What say you?
I'm going to channel David Robinson right now, who is the quit your job guy. He's been on the show before, and I might do an email introduction with you. I think you would love talking to him because what he would say is you are already in an extremely strong position today to say, I don't have to do this anymore because of how low your expenses are. So, like 36, that I'm like, damn, that's crazy. I wish we had spending like that. And I would say your plan, it's extremely conservative. And it also sounds like it's the goal of that plan, of somebody who had a plan like that, is to stop working forever and never work again after 2 years. But you said that's not necessarily your plan, that you might want to do more interesting types of work and interesting types of flights and things like that. And I have a feeling that you wouldn't ever not work again. But sure, if you wanted to quit and never work again, sure, you need $1 million. But I don't think you need $1 million. I also don't think you need to pay off your house because despite what interest rates are, they're still pretty low. And that's what I would say. And I'm pretty sure David would back me up. And I might even WhatsApp him just now and be like, what do you think? Listen to this episode. What do you think? So that's what I'm going to say.
Okay. I mean, I think it's some pretty good points. I would say that I would need a lot of math persuasion to really get myself on board. I would really need to stress test that theory. And just from a gut reaction to you saying that, you talked about earlier, like the stress that you feel at work, and by hour two, like you're just so like that. You saying that makes me clench up. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. That seems super risky to make that kind of change right now, and I'm not even FI yet, and that seems super scary. And it being super conservative plays into the fact that I crave security in my life, and I don't want to ever be in a precarious position again. And it feels that would put me in a precarious position.
No, no, because you're going to be able to go and work at a grocery store and make $36,000 a year. You will never be in a precarious position because you still are able to work and your future self is set up and then some, and your daughter is set up. And I know you probably would need to see the numbers, and that's why I think you and David talking would be pretty cool. And because that's what he does is he goes through, looks at your numbers, and he's to quit your job. He might even tell you if that's your goal, they'll go down in hours and still keep this trajectory of I want $1 million. Like he will work with you and he will probably convince you to cut what you're doing right now. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So yeah, I love that you trusted me to talk about that because I am not qualified. I am not a financial planner or coach or anything like that. I just have vibes and opinions.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the feedback. Don't worry, I hold you in no way responsible, and I paid $0 for that advice.
Yeah,
So,
okay, yeah, that's my disclaimer. It's like this is all vibes, and don't listen to anything I say, guys. Cool. Okay, we are approaching the end of the episode, but I always like to ask people what their current struggles and wins are in their life right now. And let's start with your struggles because I like to end on the wins because it's happier. So, what are your current struggles right now?
well, if you couldn't have told by the preceding hour and 15 minutes, I struggle with a work life balance. Every month, we get a new schedule. So our schedule comes out on the 10th of the month, which was what, 2 days ago? So 2 days ago, I was sitting on the couch and I see my schedule for October. And immediately I go and I look and see what is in our trade board because as pilots, we can trade trips. And if somebody wants to drop a trip and somebody wants to pick it up, then that's totally fine within our contract and everything. And so my first thought is like, okay, I'm going to look and see if there's anything good that I can pick up to add to my schedule, more credit hours, more flying, more pay. And I try to make sure that I put as much as possible as I can on there and allow at least some number of days for my daughter to come over, spend the night, us hang out, and me do the whole take her to school stuff and hang out. And so it ends up with me not having enough time just for myself. And that's got to stop. That part of it is probably not sustainable for the 2 years that I'm thinking I'm still needing to put my head down and grind forward. And it's something I've struggled with pretty much since the beginning of this journey. Even from my first airline, it was 6 days a week and refusing to let myself spend money on anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. So that is certainly something I struggle with. And considering I haven't made any changes, I'll just continue to struggle with it until I kind of finally decide something kicks me in my head and said, hey, dummy, this isn't working. And it's actively working against you not having enough personal time. And it probably impacts the time that I do have with my daughter because I feel like I don't have enough time with her. And the time that I'm with her is pretty dang good quality time, but it could probably be better. And particularly because of my desire to spend so little, my living situation in Maryland is kind of interesting. I rent a room from, I'll call her an elderly lady, she's 65, who works from home in the basement. And so I have a bedroom upstairs and we share living room and kitchen and stuff. But there's just that room. So when my daughter comes over, she sleeps in the same bed with me. I don't have a ton of like 8-year-old kids' toys laying around. We have to be relatively creative with how we decide to play and have fun, and there's lots of arts and crafts and stuff. And if I could just like put myself from the outside and look into my situation, I would say, okay, if I look at your income and then I look at your unwillingness to go out and buy some really nice arts and crafts stuff for your daughter, you are a moron. So I need to do better with stuff like that. So that's probably my biggest struggle right now, just the whole work life balance.
I don't know if you ever thought about this, and you probably have, but your daughter's 8, right? And she is only going to be 8 once in her life. And then she's approaching that age when kids start to be like, you're annoying to their parents. So you only have so much time in the phase where she's like, Daddy, Daddy, I love you, right? So it might be worth it. And maybe you can start with a baby step. Maybe you're looking at this, I forget what you called it, but where you pick up the shifts from other people who are dropping them. Maybe if you were like, I can take 5 of these, just take 4 baby steps. Next month, just take 3. Next month, 2. Next month, 1. Next month, none. Try your regular schedule out for a little while. See how it feels. Don't launch into doing something completely different than you've already been doing because that's going to be like, ah, but maybe you can kind of baby step your way into it. And maybe it seems like your daughter is the most important part of your life right now. So maybe you could use that as some motivation. Just a thought. I mean, I started hating my mom at 10 years old. So totally different situation, but still, I did.
I don't know if I'm just living in fairyland or something. I don't think that that's going to be the case. And maybe every dad thinks that, and maybe every mom thinks that. But when we're together, she was attached to my hip like crazy. And we've had conversations. So I don't think we talked about this. So she is going to be moving most likely back to Japan next year, about a year from now. Next September is when they're thinking, because both my spouse and her husband are still in the military, and that's where they're hoping to do their next PCF. So we've had these conversations about like, okay, is she going to go to Japan or is she going to transition and live with me while they're in Japan? And what does that look like? And blah, 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 blah. So I just had a conversation with her and said, these are some options. I didn't specifically mention living with me because I didn't want to get her hopes up or anything, but just like the general conversation of, hey, if you move to Japan, we're going to be this half a world apart. And you may not remember it when you were a kid, but it was kind of difficult for us to have conversations on the phone and on FaceTime and for me to visit you, and it's going to be me seeing you like once every 2 or 3 months instead of 2 or 3 times during a month. And how does that make you feel? And would you be okay with that? She's like thinking about it, and she's like, well, I'm really, really excited to go to Japan, and I really like Japanese culture, but I really hate that I wouldn't be able to hang out with you. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I feel the same way. But if you feel like you want to go to Japan and you're just worried that it's going to drive a wedge between us or it's going to like hurt your feelings. If you want to go, I'll fully support you in that and we'll make it work. And you can tell me all the awesome things you're doing and I'll come and visit you and we'll have cool adventures and stuff. So I know that most likely that's going to be the scenario where she's going to be gone for that amount of time. So, which is why it was so important for me to live close to her now while she's here. But that time is wrapping up now. And so my goals sort of coincide with the fact that she's not going to be here. And while I'll still go out there and I've got quite a lot planned and hope that I want to do with her out there, I'm going to be in the States a lot of the times where I can be head down without the guilt of not being with her as much as possible. So all of that kind of fits into this as well. I've mentioned to her, like, oh, you're 8, you're turning 9 soon. And before you know it, you're going to be a teenager and you're not even going to hang out with dad. And she's like, Dad, I don't think so. I just want to like hang out with family. At least for now, that's very true. She doesn't have a whole lot of friends in school and she's not like, oh, I want to get out of the house and go play outside. When she has fun, she wants to have fun with us. And like I said, I might just be living in fairyland and that may all change at the drop of a hat one day. But who knows? I hope that doesn't happen. Hopefully she is like, I love you all the time, but it might not. But we'll see.
I hope you're in fairyland forever too. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for adding that context in. Yeah, I can't imagine how hard that would be because it's like you really want her to have that experience of living in Japan, but also you want to see her every day still. So I get that. And I'm guessing moving to Japan yourself and kind of being a pilot out there is not an option.
It would be an option if they weren't part of the military. Like we do have pilots that commute from London into the US to fly. And so it would be horrifically inefficient for sure. It's possibly doable from Japan, but they're going to be required to live on base, and I can't live on base. And I would be gone so much for work. I would probably not get to see her. I would only get to see her marginally more that way than just flying to have a dedicated 2 weeks every couple of months type situation. So yeah, probably not going to be in the future for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, well, let's talk about your wins. What are some of your current wins right now in your life?
The biggest win is definitely just looking at the numbers. I have just freaking knocked it out of the park. And I've heard a lot of people talk about how much money they have or whatever, and they're like, well, I don't want to brag and stuff. And I feel the same way. I wouldn't want to make somebody feel worse about their own situation, but I also want to just brag on myself. Like, I'm so proud of myself for the position that I've put myself in, and to some extent, the opportunities that it has opened up for both myself and my daughter and our relationship in the future is so worth the amount of work and some of the sacrifice that I have put in so far over the last 5 or 6 years. When I've initially made the spreadsheets back in 2019, I mapped out here's all these different scenarios that can happen. I'm going to be with this airline for this many number of years. And the money guys talk about like a 3D plan, like you have your dream plan, your down to earth plan, and your doo doo plan. It's like I made all the dream plan.
Like doo doo, like bad, like poopy, like okay, I was like, or like do do, like do it. Or
No, they're a very, very family friendly show, and they don't even want
got it.
to creep close to using inappropriate language, and so they call it the doo plan.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to
But
interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify what that meant.
no, you're good. But even like my so-called dream plan, the best case scenario that I could imagine at that point in time, I have so far blown past that. It's not even funny. Like, I didn't think that I would have been close to FI until early 50s was what I was projecting out. And the fact that I could be FI in 2 years is just, it's mind blowing. The biggest win in terms of where I started and the gap that exists between that point in time and now, I would say my relationship with my parents specifically, I've always had a pretty good relationship, barring some of the sass that all teenagers have towards their parents. But the closeness that I feel to them and the openness that we have talking about the financial situations and stuff. And my dad's made these sort of offhanded comments that really stuck with me. He's talking to my mom. He's like, hey, if I die first, which is always a great way to start a conversation, I want you to run like your decisions through Sam, just to make sure that they make sense from a financial perspective. If you're thinking about doing something, just get his opinion and a second opinion, just make sure everything looks right. He puts a lot of trust in me for these types of situations, and the fact that he's changed 180 from being pretty tight-lipped about his financial situation to opening up and telling me all of his stuff and being like, hey, do you want to be our financial advisor for us, like in our old age? So there's a certain feeling that that gives me that I'm just like, I'm so glad that out of all of the crap sort of that happened with the whole divorce and stuff, a positive that came out of that is that my parents and I have this relationship that is so much better than I could have ever dreamed of growing up. I can't imagine it's only going to just get better from here for the rest of their lives, which is really cool. And Phi is sort of a part of that because I don't know if it would have happened any other way. That was like the avenue with which we bridged all of our differences or uncomfortableness with each other because my beliefs and ideals don't necessarily totally vibe match with both of theirs, and there's been some friction in the past and some harsh words were said, and all that is just water under the bridge now. And I couldn't ask for anything better. So the money part, numbers part, and my relationship with them, as well as my really close friends, I just couldn't ask for anything better.
That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. And yeah, it's great to actually have a relationship with our parents. And I kind of had the same thing where, like I said, I started hating my mom at 10 and didn't have a good relationship with her throughout my entire teenage years. And then young adulthood, we got a little bit better because I actually moved in with my dad away from her. And so we got some distance, and the distance definitely helped. And now we're very close as adults. She's been at my house the last 3 weekends in a row, and it's great. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. It's really nice to have good relationships with your parents as an adult. It's almost like I'm a parent now or about to be a parent. So you're like, oh, I get it. I get it. Okay. I was a stinker. you know? So it's easier to like, okay, I can forgive this and move on. So yeah, love it. So we are at the end of the show, but I always ask my guests to leave the audience with a life hack, recommendation, or learning that they can use and take action on. So what's that for you?
For me, that is a little website called furnishedfinder.com, which I believe I have heard you mention on one or two of your previous podcasts. Before that, I wasn't sure if you were aware of it, but you clearly are. And it has been a total life changer for me. So, for those of you who don't know, Furnished Finder is generally a way for traveling nurses to find housing during assignments that are 3, 4 months long in a city, and they'll move there, but they need a place to stay. And so, somebody has an extra spare bedroom, they rent to them for the 3 or 4 months. But as the name implies, places are typically fully furnished. They don't have to bring bedding or the bed itself or washer and dryer and utensils and pots and pans and all these other things. So I have lived that way since I got hired at my current airline, which is at the end of 2022. So coming up on 3 years now. And if you're familiar with Boston and the rents there, I have lived there for a year, and I was renting right by the airport so I could just walk to work. The one bedroom apartments start maybe at the very cheapest at 16 or $1,700 a month, and that's without utilities and all the other things. And it can easily go up to 3 or 4 thousand for nicer places. But I rented a room for $800 a month while I was there that provided me the bed and all the pots and pans. I didn't have anything, and in fact, I put all my stuff in a car and drove up with my parents to move in. Put the stuff from the car into the apartment. They drove off, so I didn't have a car and I didn't need one while I was there. And it was excellent. I was so close to work and paying so little compared to everybody else. And so I had the idea, well, I'll just do the same thing in Maryland. And so I got on Furnish Finder again. And some places are very specific and they only want traveling nurses that are female. And so some of the stuff is just going to be something that I don't have access to. But I just email people that I'm interested in and say, hey, I'm a pilot for such and such airline. I'm a male, and I don't know if that's okay, but if so, I've had really good success with Furnish Finder in the past, and would you be willing to let me stay there? And I found this house that was, like I said, 3/4 of a mile or so from where my daughter lived, and I rent in her bedroom for $850 a month. And this is an even better deal, even though I'm paying $50 a month more. The previous house, there were two other people that lived on my floor and a total of 8 of us in the house. And the 3 of us shared a bathroom. And in this house, I have my own bathroom and a room for the $850 a month. It has easily saved me tens of thousands of dollars over the last 3 years that I've just been able to shovel into investments. And with the return on that, it's probably not hyperbole to say that that's saved me 40 or 50 grand, I think. So if you're in the position, which I fully recognize that not a lot of people probably are, as somebody who doesn't have a family that lives with them, you can really save a lot of money if you're willing to take on a little bit of hassle with having roommates and doing the work of trying to find a place and work out like, okay, is this going to be a month to month thing, or how long can I live here? You may have to switch places. Some people only want you there for 3 months and then they'll want you to move on. But in my case, both of them, I was able to live there as long as I chose. And I messaged them saying that I needed to leave and they were totally cool with that. And it just worked out really well. So anybody who hasn't heard of Furnished Finder and needs a place to live somewhere, I highly recommend looking at that.
Yeah, we are big fans. Big fans. That's how I found people to live with me. So I was the other side of it. I owned my place and wanted people to live with me, but I did not want long-term roommates because I had really bad success. I'm very bad at picking roommates. I either am too nice or I can't see the bad in people or something, but I had two horrible roommates that I was like, I'm never doing this again. And so just did Furnish Finder and got a nurse. I had a guy who stayed with me. I didn't mind. He actually was only here 3 days a week because his fiance was in Virginia and he had a job here in Durham, North Carolina. And so he just stayed here 3 days a week for the job and then would drive home. But he paid for the whole time because his work paid for it. And I was like, sweet deal. So that was really nice. I never saw him because he also worked nights. So he was asleep during the day. And then I had an intern who was like 20 and turned 21 during the time she lived with me. So that was kind of fun because she was a little bit party girl, but didn't party in my house. But it was kind of fun to be around that kind of energy. So yeah, I really liked it. Is this something that you would want to do when you buy your house to kind of help with the cost and everything?
Possibly. Generally, I'm going to say no. As thankful as I am for what Furnished Finder has given to me, I'm living in it and I'm 36 and I've only ever lived by myself for 6 months or 8 months of my life since moving out of my parents' house out of high school. I am really ready to not have roommates and to have my own space and to be able to sing out loud when I want to sing out loud and not feel like I'm disturbing somebody else. So if my plan kind of goes according to plan, I feel like I'm going to be in the position where that's not going to be necessary for me, other than like, hey, I actually want a roommate or just want a little bit of additional extra income or whatever the case may be. But I'm going to say probably not for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm lucky. I live with my husband now, so we obviously share expenses and we definitely sing whenever the hell we want because we're married and we have to love each other no matter what. So cool. Well, this was a lot of fun. We spent a lot of time together. I told you it could get long. It's just like having a conversation with a friend, so it's fun. But if people want to reach out and learn more about you, maybe chat with you a little bit, how could they get in touch?
Sure. I don't have hardly any social media, both for professional reasons and I'm just missed that era growing up. Just old enough for it not to really play a part in my life for the most part. If for whatever reason anybody wanted to reach out and talk to me, then feel free, I suppose. And give you my email address. It's sdduke01@gmail.com. I fully expect to receive no emails, but if for whatever reason somebody wanted to reach out, totally fine. I'd be more than willing to chat about FI, or if you have any questions about something you heard on the podcast, it's be totally cool. I'd fully welcome more FI friends in my life because I don't think I have enough of those.
Awesome, Sam. Well, this was awesome talking to you. I just said awesome twice because this was awesome and a third time. Thanks for being here. And yeah, it was great to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your show, and I wish you the best of luck with your future shows. And then I got to say, it's refreshing, I think, to hear so many stories of just more normal people having their FI journeys being documented. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit subscribe and leave a quick rating. Also, hit up my Patreon at patreon.com/everydayfipodcast for ad-free and bonus content coming in 2026. I'm Megan Combs, and I'll see you next time on Everyday Fi.